Well, everybody, welcome back. We're about ready to move on to our next speaker. I did get some feedback from the experts in the home office in Lawrence, Kansas, that our next speaker, Manjula Karamcheti, is actually Ty's jury for the most KU-oriented dress. I will say that you have the most flowery KU dress of the lot. Our next speaker is Manjula Karamcheti. She's an associate researcher with our Center for Certification and Competency-based Education at KU. Manjula, prior to coming to KU, about 2 years ago now, a year ago now, was the Director of Equity and Support and a faculty member at High Meadows Graduate School of Teaching and Learning in Boston, Massachusetts, where she led all student support initiatives, including advising, counseling, and postgraduate mentoring. She had spent more than almost 2 decades, I think, in the K-12 space as a counselor and an administrator in diverse public schools in the Massachusetts area. Her areas of expertise, as you'll be learning about, and her passion include promoting equity and access of opportunities for all learners, as well as designing and delivering authentic social emotional learning and mental health programs. These certainly fit in nicely with the other things we've been sharing as technology starts to overwhelm us. So, Manjula, I think you're going to be walking around while you talk. Is that what I hear? We'll see. Manjula Karamcheti.
Hi, everyone. It's really exciting to be here. I've noticed a theme of school counselors here today as well, so I was kind of excited about that. I'm here to talk to you about a competency-based education. But first, I would love for you all to close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a district where the effects of historical and systemic oppression on learners are disrupted and counteracted. Yes, I said oppression, and yes, I said disrupted. And yes, I said counteracted. Consider a system where all teachers possess the knowledge, skills, and dispositions and the ability to self-examine and be able to create an equitable and just educational environment for every student. This is the vision we aspire to achieve. Picture a school where educators have a toolbox of skills to rapidly adapt their teaching practices centered on the needs and experiences of their students and families. Yes, I said rapidly adapt. In this case, it means adapting teaching approaches and strategies in collaboration with students and families, ensuring that their voices and perspectives are heard and valued. Now think of a classroom that integrates research-based methods for supporting the whole child. Yes, the whole child. Diverse learners encompassing the learning environment, instructional approaches, systems of support, and social emotional learning, where we can better understand how students learn and provide tailored support to meet their unique needs. Can you imagine it? Maybe some of you live it. Well, I'm here today to talk about a competency-based program that was recently launched at KU through the Center for Competency-based Certification and Competency-based Learning. The name of this program is called Designing for Equity, Justice, and Innovation in Education, or because we love acronyms so much, DEGI. This is a competency-based program that is designed to empower educators to deepen their practice by applying design thinking, the science of learning and development, all with the goal to foster teaching approaches that promote justice and equity in classrooms, schools, and districts. So before I jump into the DEGI program, it probably makes sense to talk a little bit about what competency-based learning is. So there are a lot of white papers about competency-based learning, a lot of research. There are scholars in this area, but really what it comes down to is a few things. In competency-based learning, we design around our curriculum around specific skills competencies of which people can demonstrate. And that is the key of competency-based learning, is the demonstration of skills. But within that, competency-based learning provides a framework that is flexible in the ways in which skills are demonstrated, and the when and the where, and in what amount of time. But to me, really, competency-based learning, I'm just going to walk over here for a minute. For me, the heart of competency-based learning is really the head, the heart, and the hand. It is taking the knowledge and skills and the dispositions that you have, integrating your identity, who you are, what matters to you, and then actually doing the thing. So the head, the heart, and the hand. And that is so much what teaching and learning is all about. And so to me, competency-based learning is really taking the theory of the best in teaching and then demonstrating that and developing those skills over time. So in terms of the origin story of this Designing for Equity, Justice, and Innovation in Education program, it starts back at the Teachers College at Columbia with a man named Arthur Levine. And he thought maybe that there was a different way to train teachers, a different way to do teacher education. Something that was hands-on, that was innovative, and that gave teachers the skills before they went into their schools and districts. So people told Arthur Levine to put his money where his mouth is, and he collaborated with MIT and with the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship Foundation to create a graduate program in STEM education, so a program for math and science teachers. So we launched this graduate school and COVID happened. And in part of our graduate school program, our educators were placed in the field from day one, and it was competency-based and portfolio-driven. So our educators were in schools, they were in districts, and we started to get a lot of feedback, and people were asking us, how do I get more teachers like this? Where did they come from? What are they doing? And what we learned from principals, from administrators, from other teachers, was that there were 3 core competencies that we were teaching in that program that really lifted up in terms of why our teachers were successful in schools and how they were doing. And these 3 core competencies were teaching for justice, thinking like a designer, and the science of learning and development. So with that feedback, with that information, and with educators in the field saying, how do we make sure that, or how do we develop teachers that have more of these skills? And so we went on a journey and tried to create a new program, a program for working educators, for practicing teachers in the field to help them develop those competencies. And so what are those competencies exactly? You can see that we have a little chart over here that kind of explains what they are. And again, our 3 core competencies in our program are teaching for justice, thinking like a designer, and grounding in the science of learning and development. And within those competencies, we have 2 supporting competencies, collaborating for change and learning to improve. So what is teaching for justice? What are the competencies of teaching for justice? An educator who demonstrates the competencies in this area, they understand the history of race, gender, and the impact that it has had on learners historically. A teacher who demonstrates teaching for justice has explored their own identity and how that impacts the learners that they work with. These educators are able to interrogate their own beliefs, their assumptions and biases, and how that might impact how they perceive students and student learning. Teachers who demonstrate teaching for justice create affirming curriculum that validates all the cultural wealth that a student brings into the classroom. These teachers, they design practices and policies that disrupt inequity, and they look for patterns of inequity through data and information. And these educators know how to do this work, how to disrupt inequity while they're participating in an equitable system. So that's what teaching for justice competency means and looks like. Thinking like a designer. What is thinking like a designer all about? So thinking like a designer is where that adaptation really comes in. I have 1 minute. Wow, that really did go fast. Okay, so let's see. How should I? Thinking like a designer, what you see on the left is our innovators compass. And I actually have handouts if people want to learn more about it. But the innovators compass is really about that design. How do you identify an issue that's happening in your classroom with your students and using the tool to design for the most historically marginalized students, for your students who are most at the center of an issue? And through observations, you can then synthesize the problems that you see and what really matters most for your students, and then ideate on all the different things that you can do to rectify the design problem of which you've identified. And then it's about experimentation, trying and learning and trying and iterating to continue to develop teaching and learning in your classroom. What I wanted to do was share some stories about some of the amazing students, the educators, some of which are in Kansas and all around the country, and their design questions. But I'm going to leave you wanting more in terms of thinking about designing for equity, justice, and innovation in education, what the competencies are, and how you might want to explore them in the future, and thinking about changing education and moving towards a more just and equitable education system. And if you're interested in the tool, I have stickers because everybody loves stickers.
I might say that right now, there it is. I might say that KU is about ready to moving towards launching the program that Manjula described in math and science and the DEGI program. Probably a year from now, we've got to get through all. Competence-based education is not something that the state is used to. So we have to convince them that it has the same value as other kinds of programs. Questions that people have for Manjula? Yeah, coming over here, bring the mic here. Sherry Willis on the run, everybody. Let's give her a round of applause. That's the.
Ma'am, I think you're a little shortchanged. So could you share an anecdote on what, what's the acronym here? DEGI looks like. What does success look like implementing DEGI?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, thank you for asking that. So we just completed our first pilot program, and what DEGI is a program for working educators who are interested in learning these competencies. So we launched with a 6-week foundational institute where all of us together explored teaching for justice, thinking like a designer, and the science of learning and development with faculty, but it was really a collaborative process. So we explored the theory and the framework around these competencies. And then the next 8 weeks were really a project cycle. So every one of our educators who participated in the program, and these were all content areas. So we had a voice teacher, we had math teachers in high school, we had a curriculum director. They all created a design question that they wanted to address in their classrooms, in their schools, and in their districts. And some examples of that were one of our math teachers. He wanted to explore the data of African-American students enrolled in advanced algebra classes. And he wanted to look at the data, and what he learned was how few students were represented. And what he decided to do was explore the policies that might be impacting this. And he, through his project, scheduled interviews. He met with a variety of positions in the system and now is working towards changing the policy for how students can enroll and get recommended for advanced algebra classes. Because what he learned was that there were a lot of barriers and there are a lot of ways in which students weren't being recommended that didn't need to be what they were. So that is one example. So all of our students participated in this project cycle and shared their projects in which they designed a solution and they actually performed that solution in their school setting where they were working. So the cool thing about the program is you have an impact in your classroom and in your district right away because you're applying the knowledge, skills, and the practices in your community with your kids. Thank you for the question.
Other questions for Manjula? Anything online appearing? So why don't we, we've got the questions, 3 questions there. Let's go into our groups for 10 minutes, discuss this, and then we'll come back with our next speaker. See you soon.